You are now tuned to BS3 Network.
Welcome to Perspective. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. We're going to get started because we got a little bit to cover. Just going to introduce myself. I am your butler, but I'm also the intellect, aka the Atlantic, because I'm cold, deep, and choppy, aka the Cullinan, because I am the biggest diamond found on land and ain't nothing nobody can do about it. All right, I'm a father, grandfather. My background is in talent acquisition, so I've been recruiting for about 17 years, which has really lent me the ability to understand people. Let me say that. It's ushered me into doing some career counseling and some general counseling. I'm involved in the community through a nonprofit called the Empower Series, which is a financial literacy-based nonprofit. So I want to encourage everyone to go onto YouTube, check out the Empower Series, look at some of the content, some of the information. I promise you, you're going to find something valuable and impactful in your life. Other than that, I just tend to be, a man, someone who has lived through a few things and likes to share them with others. And it's been brought to me that they seem to be helpful. So that has led me to this point where I'm in front of you today. And so with that, I'm going to hand the mic over to my incomparable, super duper, super capitalistic, espiatadocious co-host, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Okay, you put a lot on that one. I like that. So, hi everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Latoya. I am, Latoya, aka them kids' mama, aka his wife. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so I'm Latoya. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I'm an author. And to learn more about me, you can go to latoyathetherapist.com. I'm super excited about tonight's topic because one of my very, very, very favorite things to say is I never want to be playing checkers and you playing chess. And so now we're going to dive into playing chess, and I'm super stoked for the conversation.
Absolutely. So as everyone can see, if you don't see the banner on the bottom, that is the title of tonight's discussion, The Anatomy of Chess, but it's a relationship discussion. So just on the surface, we're going to be talking about the relation or the connection from the game of chess, some of the rules and the purposes and the pieces upon that within that game and how they relate to relationships. And I think they will end up being very valuable to help you, to help others, and we hope so, to kind of carve their mind and the thinking on how they operate within relationships you're in, or if you're wanting to be in a relationship or ultimately end up in a relationship. So we're going to start this off by first.
Hold on, I got a disclaimer. Okay,
yeah, absolutely, Doc.
We are not talking about our personal lives. We are talking about things from our past experience, things from our education, things from things that we have seen, right? So like, I'm not talking about my man. He's not talking about his personal situation. I am a therapist, not your personal therapist, unless we have homework, unless we have a contract. We've been doing this thing together. And also, I understand that there'll be an outlier for every situation. And we understand that too. There's always going to be nuance. There's always going to be layers. And for the purposes of this conversation, we will be talking about heterosexual couples.
Okay. That's awesome. And so with that being said, I'm going to read the first comment, and then we're going to play a clip that's kind of going to lead us into the discussion. So Ben Sutter III has said that you can support BS3 Network by sending stars. Stars help us earn money to continue building the network. Thank you. And if you haven't noticed, Ben Sutter III puts that BS3 into the BS3 network. So we always want to salute him. I know him personally. Awesome human being, the way he runs things and the heart that's put into our network is something that makes me proud. I'm glad I can say that word, proud to be a part of the BS3 network. With that being said, we're going to go into the discussion. And so this is the clip that's going to lead us into that, the anatomy of chess, a relationship discussion.
In the game of chess, the queen is the most dynamic player on the board. She can move and do what no other player can do. The king, on the other hand, he moves one step at a time. Even though the king moves one step at a time, every one step that he takes, he holds the weight of every player on the board, because if he missteps, then he can be checked or it'd be a checkmate and they lose the game. The worst thing you can do as a king is try to limit the dynamics of the queen to your one-step approach, to not allow her to evolve and to live into her fullest potential. Because when she's at her best self, then the queen is not only great for herself, but she's great for the king and she's great for every other player on the board. The worst thing you can do as a queen is in your dynamics be so independent that you lose sight of every step that the king is taking. If you're not in line with every step the king is taking, then it leaves you vulnerable for them to take out the king. And make no mistake about it, the goal is to take out the king. So if you can pull the queen off and have her distracted, then you take away the most dynamic player on the board, which leaves the king vulnerable.
Doc, I almost want to play that one again.
I love everything about it.
I almost want to play that one again.
We can play it again in the middle to kind of like recenter us, but I loved everything about the video. Buddy had me.
All right. Absolutely. Mr. J. Gilliard, when she was talking about, there you go. I'll let that be said. He says, folks, welcome. Man, welcome. That's my partner right there. You know what I'm saying? Indeed. So these are the aspects. So, of course, before we did this show, so this led into, what I love about what I do, it definitely forces me to research, read, listen to books, and go to different areas to kind of, you're either going to bolster what you're thinking, and what you find is that you're going to challenge what you think or what you think you know. But it's always good to get other perspectives. Yes, I'm putting a plug on our show's name. And so when you do that, so I've put together some things that we're kind of got to go in line and take a look at. And there's going to be points of discussion that it can go anywhere. That's one thing. We know we got perspectives. We can go through all of them. I have 6 points. And so I'm just going to read them off, what those points are. And then we're going to go into some details and definitions on those, which I think will spark the conversation off. I always love posing them and getting Doc's response, because she always come with a couple of Ginsu knives. She done pulled a blade out the back I didn't know she had, and the Chinese stars and nunchucks with nails on the end. So it'll be interesting. So when we're talking about the anatomy of chess, and if you don't know chess, I will go through and talk about chess a little bit. And definitely, if you have questions, please pose them into the chat. Do not be afraid to ask anything you want to ask, to share your perspective and your thought. One thing that I didn't do before this show, because I do every show, is I definitely want to reiterate, man, listen, having your perspective, your point of view, your opinion, that's the case. That's what the premise of our show is, perspective. It's about having those different angles and views and lived experiences, and we really want you to share those. So don't be afraid to do that. And yes, just because you have a point and someone else has a point and they don't match up, it doesn't mean that either one of you are right or wrong. It simply means that they're different. And when we can look into our differences, that actually brings us closer together. And at the end of the day, that's what we want to do here at Perspective. All right. Excellent. So hello, Facebook user. And we want to say this: please give StreamYard the permission just to show your name. It's not gonna track you. You're not giving up any cookies or anything like that. It should give you that opportunity wherever you logged on at. It gives you permission to share your name. So do that, because we want to be able to address you, give you a kudos appropriately by name. So do that. So when we're talking about chess and how it relates to relationships, there are 6 points. One is we're talking about the opening moves. We're going to dig into that. The 2 will be the role of strategy. Number 3 would be teamwork and cooperation. Don't act like y'all ain't never heard that one before. And then number 4 would be timing and patience. Number 5, avoiding common pitfalls. And number 6, the end game. So those are kind of like the topics in the head of those speaking points. So when we're talking about opening moves, and I want to reiterate, keep this in the mind of the transition into relationship and how you will operate with your partner. And as Doc gave the precursor earlier, she says, let me give those what we call them, Doc?
Disclaimers.
Disclaimers. We got the disclaimer.
Gotta let them know.
We're speaking. We don't have a personal feel in it. This is not our personal lives, but we're talking about heterosexual relationships in this case and as it pertains. But I'll be honest. If it's same, I think those things would be applicable too. But just as we speak, so you won't feel like we're personally excluding anyone. We're just trying to stay on track in our conversation. So establishing a strong foundation, and this is the correlation between chess and relationship. So just as in chess, relationships benefit from a strong start. The opening moves in chess set the stage for the rest of the game. And in relationships, the early stages are crucial for building trust, understanding, and emotional connection. Doc, you got anything on that?
I do. So I think it's like, so from a relationship perspective, I think that's baseline. Mm-hmm. You got to come in and, can I communicate with this person? Am I comfortable with this person? Do I feel like there's psychological safety? Like, how do I feel? So setting that stage, having that rapport, like from a relationship perspective, I think is mandatory, because what are we doing? Like, how do we even move forward if we don't have a foundation? I think that's where people get all rocky and confused, because then the moment something bad happens, they're like, oh, done with you, because there was no foundation.
Right. So it definitely, I'm getting from you, Doc, that if you don't set things get sunk very easily when they don't have a solid foundation. The hull of a boat, the foundation of a house, things built on sand tend to just tumble down into the sea. But my response on establishing a strong foundation, I look at that in when you meet someone. A strong foundation is going to make sure that you have alignment in your beliefs and your values. Those things need to be set in place. And it talks about trust, which I think is straightforward. And I think that comes with one, being vulnerable first. Because if you don't open yourself up to that, I don't think you can find out if you can trust someone if you're always, got your Wonder Woman or your Batman gadgets and blocking everything that comes and not exposing yourself to it. And then also being self-aware. I think these are all the key elements that set a solid foundation. And so when we're making our opening moves in relationships, these are the aspects that we want to take in contemplation. And so the next tier, any response? Yeah, it sounded like you wanted some response on that.
I do. So you said making sure that your values and stuff are aligned.
Your values and beliefs are in alignment.
Right. Okay. So here's the thing. What if we got chemistry, we talking, we vibing, it's great, but our values and beliefs aren't aligned? I think most people are like, oh, well, we can't do it then. I'm not like that. I kind of feel like, do we have a plan for what happens when those differing beliefs come to the forefront? Do we have a plan? Do we have an action plan? Because if we do, I feel like we can keep kicking it. If we don't have an action plan, though, maybe not. And then which values and which beliefs? Because maybe once I share my perspective, you'll be able to be like, she onto something right there. What about this?
And it could, no, I agree with all of that. I just think that alignment, and when I say alignment, they'll be aligned if you have the conversation. Someone can, and I'm open. I like that, being open-minded and not so obtuse to any other information, any other way of thinking, which is why we ride on the banner that we ride on in our show. So the next point, and you said planning. I know that's going to come up, so that's kind of why I had a smirk and a smile on my face, because Doc be on it. She be, reading the board before like a Ouija board. She's a human Ouija board. She be reading it right from the jump. So communication under the banner of like opening moves, and we're talking about relationship communication, and you'll hear that a lot. Any relationship-based conversation, I think relationship, it's going to be a focal point. It's a centerpiece of anything. It says the first moves in chess often involve controlling the center and developing your pieces. Similarly, effective communication in the beginning of a relationship involves actively listening. I want to repeat that, actively listening and establishing a solid foundation for future interactions. And I think Doc she just said that. She was like, no, if they're different, then we should have space for me to share what my countering belief or value may be on something, and that may open up someone else's eyes to an option that they didn't even know was there, or a way of thinking that they had not even explored before, which I think will create a stronger bond than a weaker bond, or in this case, it will be a great opening move in solidifying their foundation as they go.
Hold on, I got something for that too. I think that if we're talking about opening moves and like establishing a foundation, I think it's also important to pay attention to how they communicate. And not just to you, but to people around them, because everybody's like, oh, effective communication, blah, blah, blah. But how do they communicate with other people? How do they communicate with you? When y'all have a small disagreement, you want McDonald's, they want Burger King. Like, how does it go? I think paying attention to how they communicate so that later on, when y'all are upset and y'all are having a more emotionally charged conversation, how they communicate is not blindsiding to you. You're not like, oh my gosh, I've never heard you raise your voice. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know why my voice changed right there. I've been hanging out with you too long.
I know, because
hanging out with you too long. So
it's contagious.
But no, I just think that you have to pay attention, because I mean, how they handle other people, they'll eventually handle you that way.
Gotcha. So let's go to the comments. And we talked about the opening moves, establishing a strong foundation, and then communication. Those are two key points that we brought up. If you have some others, we'd love to hear about what you think would be great opening moves in establishing a healthy relationship. So Facebook user said, and that's Tanya. How you doing, Tanya? She said, I don't think all values will be aligned. I think it depends on what it is.
I agree with that, because we're different people. We coming from different experiences, probably different socioeconomic status, different upbringings. So I agree with that.
Yeah. And I think you'll know what are the, I'll use the word non-negotiables. You know what those things are that really, what are some of the fundamental foundational elements of your life as it deals with what your values are or what your beliefs are. And those need to be openly discussed so you can see if it's too big of a gap or not. And so just those core things need to be aligned, because to Tanya's point, not everything is not going to be aligned, so to speak. Right. Mika Baldwin says, that's eye-opening. She said, I'd be ready to run if they're not aligned. She said, but can be open to a plan. She said, good to see you, beautiful Doc. This past weekend, she said, you've been a sis in my
Hey, sis. I know it was so good. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like we besties, like we've been knowing each other. It was great.
Yeah, y'all can stop all that now. Going on now.
Boo, don't be a hater.
I am, because I was upset that I wasn't able to be there. I really was hurt. I was hurt. I should have. Mr. Ben Sutter III said, good evening. Good evening to you, Captain.
Hello, sir. How are you?
And Aspen Smith says, I agree with Tanya. She said, I don't think everything aligns. We aren't clones. True. So in values that don't align, we definitely need to learn the art of compromise.
Okay, I'm with that. You know, Aspen, I'm with you. But I think it's very important that people know what their non-negotiables or what their deal breakers are, because sometimes we'll be compromising too much. And you wake up one day and you like, I don't even know who I am anymore, because I used to not eat chicken and now I'm eating chicken every day because I'm trying to compromise with this person.
Yeah.
So I think that's important too.
Yeah, you're supposed to be off that narcotic. Now you're back on. You're trying to compromise. Got to know where the line is. And then Aspen says, yes, you have to know your boundaries and deal breakers.
Yes, that's so important. And I also think that as you're establishing a foundation, because I don't want to be head over heels in love with you, and a year in, you hit me with, boom, this is my deal breaker. And I'm like, I've been doing this for the last 3 months. What's up? What are we talking about? You know what I mean? So I think that you should talk about those things in the beginning.
That's why It's under the opening moves because you don't want to get deep into the game and everybody exposed and you like, why we all getting snatched up? But that'll come later. And if you have any questions about chess, you got to put it in the comments. Make sure we keep the conversation connected. So, moving on to point number 2, the role of strategy. So, long-term planning. Mika brought up that word, plan. So under the role of strategy, long-term planning, chess players take several moves. They think several moves ahead to anticipate their opponent's moves. So think about what are the opponents to a relationship and develop a winning strategy. Similarly, in relationships, it's important to have long-term goals and plans, considering how decisions today will impact the future.
I'm here for it. But I'm a person who is like, okay, what's the 30-day plan? What's the 6-month plan? What's the 5-year plan? Like, I'm here for that. I am that person. Yes. And here's the thing. The thing about having a plan is if you don't have a plan, then we just out here just foiling through life. We just woo. Like, no, like, what's the plan? What are we doing? What is the goal? What are we trying to accomplish? And I don't think it has to look traditional. I don't think the plan has to be a house, a picket fence, 2 kids and a dog, if that's not the type of people that we are, right? But there has to be a plan. What are we doing? Are we saving all of our money so that we can backpack through the country for 6 months at a time? Like, what is the plan? What are we doing? What are our goals? I'm here for that.
Yeah, I was just about to say something, but I know it's coming up in my research, so it'll pop its head out in a second. I really can't. I mean, there's not much to really say differently about that, but I'll reiterate it in my voice. So when you're talking about planning, and this is the thing, you know, when you're making plans, you're going to have short-term goals and then long-term goals. Yes. At least sit down and talk about that, because I think that goes along with the communication and establishing that opening move. Okay, we're making an opening move. Where do you see us several moves down the line? So whenever you think about that, you got to look at what your situation is now, make a plan, and do what I call reverse engineering. So if you know you want to be somewhere, say, okay, this is where we want to be, then what would we have to do to get to this point? And then to get to let's say if it was 5 tiers, you find out what you need to do to get tier 4. Then you would research, reverse engineer, what do I need to do to get to tier 3? Then what do I need to do to get to tier 1, tier 0, where you are there? And now you kind of have a plan. I'm just going to hint at, don't be afraid to, like in chess, someone may make a move, something may happen that you had anticipated happening, but it didn't happen, but we'll get to that down the line. So let's read sometimes I don't have a plan. Okay.
But he's married to a planner.
That's why he got a queen on the board.
Yeah.
And for those who joined late and didn't see the video, we're going to take a pause here and after our 3rd point, we're going to replay that video just so it can reiterate and kind of lay more of a foundation on some of the comments we make that we've made here going forward. And then Mr. J. you said, my plan sometimes is, let's see what happens as we go. If you don't listen.
I think the beauty of being in a relationship, though, is he gets to operate in that space because I'm going to have a plan.
That's why it's a team effort. That's why it's all the different pieces on the board. And the queen typically is the most dynamic piece on the board.
That's what the video said.
Yeah. So and the reason I like that video is because I agree with the assessment just based on my own experience, my own assessment and study, I would say, not just in chess, but in life and what I've seen, not romantically, but I've seen it in professional works in other spaces. So I'll get off that soapbox. So under the 2nd tier, which we call the role of strategy, we talked about adaptability. So I was trying to hold that. I didn't want to steal the next point's thunder. It says, just as chess players adjust their strategy based on their opponent's moves, partners in a relationship should be adaptable and willing to compromise when necessary. Flexibility and the ability to adjust plans are key. And I'm joking. Doc, you're gonna say everything, but I'm gonna say this. That point, I just want to highlight that being able to do that and adjust to plans are key, because I'm gonna tell you, as a man, we might not have all the answers. We're gonna do something. See, with women, that security is so important. If you don't already have a plan, Mika, because Mika ain't even giving his chance. You ain't got no 30-year plan. You don't know. Wait a minute, you ain't taught. No, because I don't know.
That's not what she said. That's not what she said.
That's who I fight with. Y'all, you know what it is. I got to throw my darts. But no, I know women think that way, and that's intrinsic, even subconsciously. But no, being able to adjust, not breaking down, jumping ship, getting, throwing. What I'm saying is, don't create issue with your mate because something didn't go the way that it was actually planned. So that doesn't make the man less capable, incompetent, or anything like that. Let's watch how they adjust. Matter of fact, if you're in a relationship, something like that happens, just watch what he do. Just not what happened, but what he does or how he responds to that. Can he be flexible? And most importantly, can you be flexible along with him to make those adjustments? Now I'm a hush. I'm sorry, Doc.
So I feel several ways. I think the first, my visceral reaction is why we always got to be flexible? We out here bent out of shape. But I don't disagree. I do think that for me, have a skeleton of a plan. You think this is what it could possibly look like. You know what I mean? Don't come to me with no, we just jumping off the cliff, we're gonna see what happens. No, did you even get a book bag? Where's the parachute? I have questions.
But ain't that what questions? That's what y'all be listening to Steve Harvey ask. Did he tell you to jump? He said jump and you're gonna get skinned up going down, but eventually
he absolutely said that, and I think in the realm of how he said it, I'm cool with that. But in the realm of my dude and we about to jump off it, no, I'm not cool with that.
Ain't that convenient?
I'm not cool with that.
That's convenient. Anyway, okay.
I do think there has to be flexibility. I'm here for that, because even the best laid plans can go awry. You could have thought of A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, and double X squared, and something else can go wrong, and that's not necessarily your fault. And I think it's being able to understand that he had a plan, but this thing happened that we couldn't predict that. We couldn't plan for that, right? And I think
you always have to work. You always have to work at things, because one thing is guaranteed: you can work hard, you can plan, you can strategize, you can do all those things, and still your ass will lose.
Amen.
But if you don't plan, you don't strategize, and you don't work hard, it's guaranteed your ass gonna lose. Have the ability to be flexible, to work hard, to make a plan, do those things, but be able to adjust when things don't go awry. That's no reason to throw up your hands, or most importantly, don't start pointing no damn fingers. Don't do that. And I'm gonna say this to try to and talking about chess, you'll come to learn the chess, and it's going to come in the video, but I'm gonna reiterate it. The key piece on the board is the king, but the most dynamic piece on the board is the queen.
That's
the
right.
Queen can move all over the place and be flexible, and it's even biologically, women's mind work that way. Men are more compartmentalized. A man's brain is made up of a bunch of drawers, where a woman's mind is more like a roller coaster track that just keeps continuously going. They connect this scenario to the next scenario, to that scenario, to the scenario that happened back before, which gives them a very dynamic view of things. Where a man will be in this box, and then we got to put everything back in that box, shut it before we get into the next box. And so women are like, well, what about this and this and this and this? Man, I'm just focused on this thing right here today. And I think that creates a lot of argument and struggle within relationships. Yes. But if you already know that if he's sitting there and he ain't said nothing about it, it's not that he ain't doing nothing. He thinking, and he's going through scenarios, and he's digging in that box to try to find a solution. If it ain't there, he may shut it and come through. Now on the men's side, when she got all them ideas going, just say, okay, baby, stack them right here. I'm gonna go through those too. Because in reality, they may have the answer, or they may have something that will spark your mind to come to the answer. But I'll get off my soapbox there. Mrs. J. Gillia says, so true. So true. So Doc, we at number 3. Do you want to play the video now, or do you want to wait till we go after number 3, which is a teamwork and cooperation?
Let's after.
Okay. So the third one is teamwork and cooperation. Introspective soul says, share your thoughts on what it means to relate to someone.
What's your thoughts?
Oh, I was gonna let you go, Doc. I mean,
no, you
to relate to someone, I think it would still rest within alignment. But I mean, I relate to individuals even that I don't agree with. But when we're talking about, because I mean, I think there is always some commonality between every person, but it just takes a certain type of consciousness to be willing and open to do that. I think a very rudimentary way of saying it is, finding the good in everybody, but I'm trying to find the commonalities, and then we'll rest and roll on those. And then if there's a place where it rubs hard, then we'll address that too. But if I understand your question on what it means to relate to a person, I think you always look at the humanity in them. Be open and consider what they may have been through, may have not been exposed to that you have. So I think it gives you a bit of grace to relate to everybody.
Yep, I'm gonna go with that, heavy on the commonality part.
Okay. And Aspen Smith says, I agree with structure, strategy, and flexibility. But what about spontaneity with just life? So goals are needed. How you learn from one another is important. Like, can we have fun and spontaneity within the relationship?
So I think that we can, and I think that kind of like helps keep the spark alive. But I don't know that you can be spontaneous in chess because it seems so super calculated. But I think for like real life, absolutely throw something in there. But I think like we have this foundation, we've been communicating, you know what I like, I know what you like. So boom, we got this extra 2 hours. Let's go do one of the things that you like with it, right? But I think that only comes after we've communicated, because how do I know what like new, fun, exciting things to do with this free time or free money or whatever if we haven't talked?
Mm-hmm. And as far as that, I think spontaneity is something. I think spontaneity is spontaneous. It'll come at that point. And as we talked about in your opening move, I think when you're having those conversations, you're really delving into the things that we covered, the communication, developing the trust, sharing your goals and things you like to do. You'll know if someone's if they're spontaneous or not. And is that something that matches up with you? Is that a non-negotiable for you? Because if they're very rigorous, if they're very rigid, and they have these set steps of doing everything, and that might not be the right, might not be the right chess partner for you, so to speak. Aspen Smith says, do we always have to strategize? Say, don't we need to give our mind a break? I mean, we're keeping it in the confound of this. So how chess relates to relationship, I mean, I think you want to do that, because if you strategize properly, I have a saying, I say, man, grind now, kick it later. So do the hard work, have the plan in place, put the resources, the steps and the process in place. And that gives you that ability, kind of like how you get a machine running good, and all you need to do is keep these key things tweaked. You do that, then you'll be able to have a break. And I think having things in order provides a certain level of peace of mind.
I think that inserting the rest into your plan or into your strategy is key. Like I'm gonna always budget in time for some procrastination. Cause like, okay, perfect example. We log in for our thing, like we try to get on here at 8, right? But we're not always talking to each other and thinking about what we're gonna say at 8 o'clock. Like I might be playing Mo3, you might be talking to your grandma, like, but we're here, you know what I'm saying? But we have that 30 minutes of like, okay, time is winding down, but it's kind of like our procrastination time. I finished a conversation with my husband before I logged on, but I knew what time it was. So I'm going to always add in some like buffer time and some time to rest.
Indeed. Awesome. So number 3 is teamwork and cooperation. So peace coordination. Pieces.
Yes, we gonna dress alike. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Coordinating the pieces, though. In chess, pieces work together as a team to achieve a common goal. And in relationships, partners should collaborate as a team to address challenges and pursue shared objectives. Now, thinking about chess, it's coming to, I think the key thing about when you're coordinating is, and this is be my point, and I'm going to let you out of rest, Doc, is I think really identifying the strengths and the areas of improvement, areas of opportunity, I would call them, that each person has, and allow them to be put in those places to do what they do.
I actually can't say that better, so it's gonna go with that.
That's a rarity. The doc be like, well, I talk to, so you always have some good juice on that one. So let me say it like this. So when you're putting peace coordination, now I'm gonna take that. Let me stop. Let me take that. She said she agreed with that. Yeah, absolutely. And so under that, the next would be recognizing each other's strengths.
And I think that's good. Like some of us are planners, some of us are more spontaneous, some of us are like budget conscious, some of us are like, no, let's go experience blah, blah, blah. Like I think that you pick your person because you like their strengths. Let them operate in their strengths.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is what I wanted to get you to dig in, Doc, because I think I don't want to say that's kind of surface level, and I think people would understand to do that. But what about those issues in those elements where, let's say, because I think trust comes into play, or identifying those strengths in areas of improvement and how to have that conversation. Do you have any insight on that? Maybe something you've ran into, in your practice?
So if I give you the ball, you got to run with it. You can't fumble in the beginning. If we're just learning and we're new to this and I give you the ball, you cannot fumble because now I don't have any trust. And even if I thought you were strong in this thing, I don't think you're strong in it anymore because I just watched you fumble. So now I'm not going to give you the ball again.
So not only identify, it's like actually, hey, take on something. And so I would say in that, if you know this is difficult or you're even in the midst of it, I think you could salvage some things in saying, hey, babe, or sweetheart, I'm having trouble trying to keep up with this or keep this in alignment, and let's find another solution.
The problem is people don't do that. People are like, they take the ball and I give you the ball, you took it, and now what? Now we just out here. Right.
So I'm saying that to put that out as thought. Like, hey, if you're having trouble, it's not, and if you have the right partner, you've done the what I would say the other aspects of things in a proper manner. You know what I'm saying? If you've established strong foundation, you communicated, you've done some long-term planning, you've demonstrated and agreed to being adaptable, we're putting everybody in position, then you should be able to have that conversation and not be afraid to go and say, hey, I need some assistance, or this ain't going quite that well for me. And let's maybe find another way to do it so it doesn't turn into an issue.
And second that, like, hold on, because I got to say this. I think it's important to say that the moment you recognize that you're struggling. Do not don't ask me for the ball. Now it's the fourth quarter. It's 2 seconds left. And you like, hey, I'm struggling. Help me out. What I'm gonna do?
Got 99 yards to go. 10 seconds on the clock, and we need to drive.
And no timeout.
We need a whole. I love it. This is my co-host, y'all. You know what I'm talking about? She knew the football reference. She knew what the man. Come on, now, come through, Doc.
Yeah, like we got no timeouts. You should have called me in the third quarter. Like, don't do that. Because now we really don't have trust. Because now I don't know that, like, are you dumb and you didn't recognize that you needed help? Did you not trust me to help you? Like, what's the problem? Like, how did we get here? I don't. So now it's nothing. Now I don't trust you at all because now I got to come with a Hail Mary. And what if I don't have one?
When people show you who they are,
believe them.
Okay. Anyway, so at this point, we opened up the show with a video, a short clip that kind of speaks to this, and it gives some perspective on the game and as it pertains to relationships. And so we're going to play that again for our viewers that kind of came in late. So any feedback would be welcome, and we have 3 more points that we'll cross over as well. Here we go.
In the game of chess, the queen is the most dynamic player on the board. She can move and do what no other player can do. The king, on the other hand, he moves one step at a time. Even though the king moves one step at a time, every one step that he takes, he holds the weight of every player on the board, because if he missteps, then he can be checked or it'd be a checkmate and they lose the game. The worst thing you can do as a king in the game of chess, the queen is the most dynamic player on the board. She can move and do what no other player can do. The king, on the other hand, he moves one step at a time. Even though the king moves one step at a time, every one step that he takes, he holds the weight of every player on the board, because if he missteps, then he can be checked or it'd be a checkmate and they lose the game. The worst thing you can do as a king is try to limit the dynamics of the queen to your one-step approach, to not allow her to evolve and to live into her fullest potential. Because when she's at her best self, then the queen is not only great for herself, but she's great for the king and she's great for every other player on the board. The worst thing you can do as a queen is in your dynamics be so independent that you lose sight of every step that the king is taking. If you're not in line with every step the king is taking, then it leaves you vulnerable for them to take out the king. And make no mistake about it, the goal is to take out the king. So if you can pull the queen off and have her distracted, then you take away the most dynamic player on the board, which leaves the king vulnerable.
I think that video gets better every time I watch it.
Every time, yeah, because it's not a lot of holes in it. Yeah, not a lot of holes in that. So those are the kind of points. So think about what we've talked about in aspect to that analogy, that kind of explanation, which I think is excellent. I'll just put that out there. Talking about opening moves, establishing a strong foundation, and communication. The role of strategy, so long-term planning, and I would just throw in short-term planning as well, to kind of lead up to that. We talked about reverse engineering, know where you want to go, plan out how to get there, and at least gives you a roadmap. And then it talked about being adaptability. So be adaptable as we go on that road. Yeah, we made a plan, but there are unforeseen things that may happen. So let's communicate, build that trust, and be adaptable when those things come. And then we talked about number 3, teamwork and cooperation. So piece coordination, everybody finding out their and then recognizing everyone's strengths, putting the right people in place that are going to help you get to that plan or that goal that you did when you did your strategizing. And so that moves us on now to point number 4, timing and patience, choosing the right moments. So in chess, the timing of moves is crucial. In relationships, knowing when to discuss important matters or when to give space is equally vital. And I think knowing when to go for certain goals, when to make really strong, also when to make really strong, whether it be financial or emotional, I would say, or relational decisions, like moving in or something like that. Giving them the right moments, understanding when that is. And then, so I'll let you respond to that. So choosing the right moments.
I just think at a baseline, before you make a move or have a conversation or try something new, you got to consider the timing. So like if we just had an argument, right? True story. Just had an argument. Then y'all go to therapy. Y'all come to me and I say, hey, you got to learn how to emotionally regulate. Take a time out. Y'all just had an argument. Y'all leave. Y'all have another argument and you're like, time out. No.
Wait, Doc. Dig in.
You gotta choose the time, and like y'all just learned this. You can't just be pulling that out on people like that. They're not ready. Or when you're in therapy and the other person's not, and then you roll up on them like my therapist said, da 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 da. They not in therapy. That's not the right time, and don't do them like that.
I'm gonna help somebody right now. Ladies, do not tell your man what the pastor said. Don't do it. Don't do it ever. Got you. And if that man, because that's all he is, if he don't tell you that, it's a problem. And if you don't like it, go tell him. Eric, the Intellect, the Atlantic, Cullinan on the Perspective Podcast said it. Tell him to call me. He'll ping me on my social media, and I'll talk to him about it, either over social media or I'll talk to him about it face to face. Because he's wrong. Period. And so I will not confirm nor deny. I will not confirm nor deny that has ever happened to me. But I can tell you that is not accurate. That's not right. And you shouldn't do it. Say anybody said anything like that. But that's to Doc's point, saying my therapist said, you don't handle things like that. Especially if it's not. Doc used an analogy like, okay, then you leave and you get into another argument. You're like, time out. That ain't, that's not how it's supposed to work. Or if, let's say, that was given as a suggestion, hey, y'all need to take some time, cool off, don't talk. And then that happens and the person comes to talk to you and then they say, well, didn't so-and-so say us not to talk? Yes. that's not how you use that, right? Yeah. So,
okay, hold on.
So timing and patience. Yeah, go right ahead. Mr.
Yeah,
J.
I know. Okay, go ahead.
I thought you said read the comments. Oh, Jay Gillian said, don't leave the king vulnerable. Church, tabernacle. He said, Mr. Cold, Deep, and Choppy himself. Right.
Okay, so just because I have to know, I'm not going to be able to let this go.
Have to?
So I have to know. So the preacher in this example, what did they say? They was like, your man wrong?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. In front of his wife.
So in this example, the preacher, the husband, the wife. The preacher said, your man wrong.
No, he told him in front of her, you wrong. I know how you and apparently that caused a lot of discord, a lot of problems.
Because from now on, she like, well, you let the pastor say you was wrong. Why I can't say you wrong? Okay, patience.
Yeah. You just had to know. Yeah. Whew. Yeah, that was a heavy one, ain't it?
It was. Do you know how I'm feeling about stuff like that right now? No, okay.
Do not do that to me because I ain't gonna be able to go forward. Yeah, we got inside jokes on here. Y'all just have to try to figure it out over time. All right. So choosing the right moments and then patience in adversity. I almost don't want to say nothing. I know Doc gonna have a lot on that one. Patience in adversity. So just as chess players remain patient in difficult positions, couples should remember that relationships have their ups and downs. Patience and perseverance can lead to solutions in challenging times.
It's hard. I would love to be like, yes, be patient. Your caterpillar is going to turn into a butterfly, but it's hard. It is hard to be patient in adversity because it's like, listen, get it together, sir or ma'am, because women be messing up too. It's hard. I think you always have to remember, like, what's in game? Is in game being with this person and being happy? Then we got to figure it out.
Yeah, I think that's where the planning comes in place because when things between you and their partner may get off kilter, it's almost soothing to go back and say, well, it kind of gives you an idea of why we're making decisions, why things happen that may upset you. And it kind of recenters the focus on what the actual purpose was and why we're doing what we're doing, because that can get lost in the sauce if there's no combined understanding of where we're headed. And you get, you'll be blowing in the wind like you kind of demonstrated earlier. Like, I don't want to just be.
We just out here.
Yeah, whatever it takes. Yeah, it's you got to kind of act on life and not let life act on you, so to speak. So it talks about, and there's another thing. I think people contemplate patience being a very docile word, but I think it's more of an action word. Patience is. It's like a work word. It takes work to be patient, because the things you may need, because to sit back and not know is hard. You think you're being patient. Being patient is like, okay, well, help me understand what we're doing or why we're waiting. In that sense, and just because you're asking about that does not mean that you're not being patient, because it's the responsibility of the other partner. If they're in charge of something, we've given them the responsibility for that. Can you give me a outline or read on that, and then I won't bother you until that time comes. Now, if what doesn't happen is supposed to happen, I'm not being impatient. We've talked about this. I have an understanding of when the next move should be made. I'm coming to ask about that move. So patience is not just sitting back, letting things happen while you sit in the dark. It's more of an interactive word or active word than a passive word.
Right.
And from my perspective.
No, I like it. I'm gonna roll with that.
All right. And so number 5 is avoiding common pitfalls. Avoiding common pitfalls. So avoiding impulsive moves. Chess players know that impulsive moves can lead to disaster. Impulsive moves.
Yeah, because like you get mad and you go do something stupid, like you spend your light bill money, or you call your ex-girlfriend, or you go do something dumb. Now you've risked everything because you had like a knee-jerk reaction, and that's just not smart.
Yep, it says likewise in relationships, it's important to avoid hasty decisions and think through potential consequences. And I don't think people do risk analysis enough.
They don't.
They don't look, and then they don't think about. And it's not. I know you're going to have a group of individuals, because I would say I fall in that. I speak those things as though they are. I don't really like pondering and going over or worrying about what could go wrong. But I think there's a certain level of due diligence to understand that there are highs and lows, there are ups and downs in everything. Just as the seasons change, just like in farming, you have to prepare for the next season that's coming, so that you know when there's going to be times to sow and time to reap. So understanding that, you can prepare for that. So think about what could wrong, what will be our contingency plan if something doesn't go awry, and are we okay with ending up in that position? Now, we ain't gonna dwell on it, but we can try to make some plans for it at least.
I agree.
Okay. Overcoming, and then also in avoiding common pitfalls, overcoming mistakes. Both chess and relationships involve making mistakes, learning from these mistakes, and moving forward with improved strategies is essential for growth. I'm gonna leave it with you, Doc.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I don't know that I could say it any better. Like, if it was a mistake, or if the outcome was something that you didn't enjoy, or that you didn't like, or that you felt like was painful or stressful or whatever, learn from that. Like, don't do it again. Yeah. I mean, I think that's cut and dry.
Yeah, like in chess, you may, like when they talked about chess, good chess players, they think a few steps ahead. So they're going to make moves with anticipation of, let's say, if you're talking about the housing market, you're expecting the housing market or an investment to go a certain way. So you make certain moves. So you want to be able to overcome those mistakes, because it might, the stock might not go, it might tank, or the housing market might shift, or there's something else that can happen. And then you have to make, you lost on it, or you didn't get the house, or your house fell through, or something like that. But you have to be, put yourself in a position to overcome mistakes. And that comes along with that planning, looking for contingency or having contingency, the what ifs that can happen.
Right.
But like in chess, they're going to happen. So in relationships, you need to understand that one, plan better. Now you know better, do better.
Mm-hmm.
So that as you go forward together, when those type of things come up, they won't be as impactful, they won't be as harmful, and it won't cause as much rift between you and your partner. Introspective Soul says his analogy seems conflicting because chess is a strategy game. There's no strategy to relating unless to favor the ego. Share your thoughts on this. I don't understand the question, so I can't share any thoughts on this because because what you said I kind of don't agree with and I don't understand it. Because I think it's a perspective. So to say that it's a strategy game, it is a game of strategy. And in relationships, I definitely believe there. And if there's not any strategy in your relationship, from my point of view, I think that may be harmful. And I will say that's through my personal experience, making the wrong choices based on other factors and not being more strategic about who I combine my life with, in the way that I handle certain circumstances, not being strategic in recognizing things that were kind of obvious in the beginning and kind of led me down the wrong road. So I do think like chess, I think having a relationship does require some strategy. And if I didn't before, I believe that now. But again, that's just my perspective. And it sounds like you said it was something about it's relationship to you is more about relating to someone. You said there is no strategy to relating. Yeah, unless we had a more deeper conversation about what you mean by relating. Because I answered that in the earlier as far as how I relate to people. That wouldn't have any strategy. I think that's something that does happen organically, but it happens with you understanding yourself. So I don't think that requires any strategy. To your point, you say unless to favor the ego. I can only speak for myself. No, I mean, I don't know. I don't really involve ego, but it may depend on how you define ego or what you consider ego. I think we would define it the same way. But I think anyone that, if you're going to be in a healthy relationship, you definitely you can't have ego, a healthy one, a good one, in my opinion.
I think that there has
to give you some insight. I responded the best I could from that because I didn't, but I don't know if I'm really relationships, to relate. I wasn't sure if I understood it.
I think there has to be strategy to relationships because I'm not going to be in a relationship with somebody that doesn't like what I like. Like, what we going to do when we hang out? That's just like on the surface level. Like, if I like the movies and this person doesn't like the movies, but the movies is my favorite date, how that's going to go? Like, just from a basic level, right? Gotcha. So I think there does have to be some strategy. And I think that there should be some strategies with like platonic relationships too, because who you surround yourself with is how you start to act, how you start to think, XYZ. So I'm not sure, but I'm not sure that I understand the question, but we can go to the next.
No, but I appreciate the question. It
I love it.
Thought. It made some insight and conversation within the chat as well.
Yeah, say more.
Miss Steph says it's good to learn each other's love language and improve upon that.
I agree with that.
Which I think that's, I
think that's strategy, right? Like
I wanted to say that, but I was like, it's going to feel
like I start doing it.
I'm an introspective soul, but I'm not.
Yeah, that's strategic though, because if I'm a person who I'm an acts of service type of person. My daddy was highly involved in my life. He told me he loved me. Like, I don't need all that, but I love a good acts of service. So that's typically how I show love. But if your love language is physical touch and I know that, then I need to like put it on a sticky note or do something to make sure that I'm touching you or make sure that I'm speaking your love language. That kind of is strategy though, right? Or no?
Well, it could. I mean, the way that you just explained, I was like, okay, that's relating to someone too, understanding what their love language is, and then But then the strategy is like, okay, if I don't naturally do that, how can I strategically do that? What, give myself, like you said, right on a sticky note. This is what my partner likes. This is how they like to respond. This is what they respond well to. So, thank you for the question, because it definitely opens up that thought and food for thought. Mr. J. Williams said, that's how relationships end in divorce, because there is no strategy.
Okay. We have to end, but go ahead and go through the last two. I know you want to.
No, we good. Well, I'll say this. The last two. So number 6 is the end game. The end game. So achieving a win-win in chess, a well-played end game can lead to victory for both sides. I kind of felt funny about it, but I didn't want to avoid it. It says, in relationships, finding solutions where both partners win is the ultimate goal. I felt better about that. But I still feel, I'm like, so that it seems a little utopic to me. And then the second one is acknowledging checkmate. But do you have something on the win-win, Doc?
I don't, but I got something on acknowledging checkmate.
Okay, but I'll say this on the win-win. I sound pessimistic saying I don't. In times there can be win-wins. I think that there's possible, but I don't think that's going to be on the upfront all the time. Not on the surface. I say not on the surface, because what I feel like is the truth is sometimes people win and they don't even know that they've won, because they didn't necessarily get what they wanted, and they don't even know that they've been saved and avoided a pitfall because it didn't go their way. I have a saying, even when it's bad, it's good with me. I claim that I have favor, so I'm going to make solid decisions with the knowledge that I have, and then what the outcomes will be, I'm good. So if I get a no, I meant that no wasn't for me, and I won't trip on the no. I'll just go on and do something, because I've come to learn many times. You look back and be like, damn, I'm glad I didn't do that, or damn, I'm glad they didn't give me an opportunity, because they are trash. That can happen. And many times I go into something that ends up being that far exceeds my expectations or what I may have desired to have. And I'll chill. You say you had nothing on that. Now, acknowledging checkmate, sometimes relationships reach a point where continuing is not possible or healthy. Just as in chess, it's important to acknowledge when it's time to move on and start new. Start anew.
I think that's it.
I'm gonna let Doc we good, Doc. We got the last slot, so don't feel pressure to rust.
No, I think that more people need to acknowledge checkmate. Like, people come and sit in my office and they be like, he keeps cheating on me, he won't stop cheating on me, cheating is a deal breaker. Girl, the relationship's over. What y'all want me to do? Like, what do you want me to say? You're saying he is consistently crossing your boundary, like it's a wrap, sis. Like, what are we talking about? I think that sometimes people stay in relationships because they've been together for so long. And I just like to remind people that all y'all got is all these years. Like, that's it. Y'all just got time. Y'all ain't got no love, no mutual respect, no openness, no intimacy. Y'all literally only have time. Checkmate.
Man.
I just think that, and I understand, because I'm human, like I have feelings. And so I understand that is a difficult conclusion to come to, but it's so freeing on the other side.
Freeing.
Yeah, like it's gonna be dysfunctional, because you're gonna be sad, like, oh my gosh, we broke up. Oh, woo, woo. But then once you heal from that, you'll be fine. Versus staying in the situation and continuing to be miserable with no foreseeable end date.
Absolutely. And I'm going to do two things and then we'll get off, Doc. So I'm going to cover the definitions of these two pieces, the king and the queen in chess. And then, closing remarks, and then we'll play that video for you just one more time, and then we'll sign off.
They are done with that video.
So the king, the role of the king is the most critical piece in chess. The primary objective of the game is to protect your king while attempting to checkmate your opponent's king. The movement, the king can move one square in any direction, that's horizontally, vertically, or diagonally, once. He can move one square in any direction. Now the queen, the role of the queen is the most powerful piece. I'll repeat that for the ladies. The queen is the most powerful piece on the board and is often considered the queen of the board. It can be used for both offense and defense. Movements, the queen can move in any direction, horizontally, vertically, or diagonally for any number of squares. So the queen can move all over the board. It can be dynamic. It can be very versatile. It's a dual piece. It can be offensive and defensive. It can defend. It can set up people. And I say that because I like chess and I play chess at a very rudimentary level. I would never challenge anybody. I'm not Bobby Fischer up in here, but I really like the game. And of course, you do not want to lose your queen. And your queen is vital, but the king is the most critical. So I wanted to say that. The things I want to highlight: queen is the most powerful piece. The king is the most critical piece. Now I'll let y'all chew on that. So the purpose of having this and kind of talking about the relation to chess and relationships, of course, it sparks thought because I like to have countering thoughts on things, but by drawing parallels between the rules and strategies of chess and the dynamics of relationships, we can gain valuable insights into how to communicate, cooperate, and strategize effectively with our partners. So whether it's, whether you're playing chess, but to try to think about that, but most importantly, understanding the power of teamwork, the lessons from the chessboard can help guide us towards healthier and more fulfilling relationships. And so hopefully that happens, kind of gives you something to chew on, to think about as your position, whether you're in a relationship or if you want to get, or if you're moving into a relationship, thinking about if you're a queen, that you are the most powerful piece, but the most critical piece is the king, and all those aspects we talk about to implement those. Come back and review this episode, take down some notes, and maybe it'll help you be successful as you go into that. So we're going to play the video one last time for Doc, and then we'll be signing off. All right. Thank y'all, everybody.
In the game of chess, the queen is the most dynamic player on the board. She can move and do what no other player can do. The king, on the other hand, he moves one step at a time. Even though the king moves one step at a time, every one step that he takes, he holds the weight of every player on the board, because if he missteps, then he can be checked or be in the game of chess.
You act like you don't.